going. So anyway, because of the timing of things with sourdough, I'm going to be starting pretty much at the end and then going to the beginning with all these different steps because things take time. I have dough prepared at several different stages. The first thing that I want to show you is these are sourdough discard cookies.
Discard cookies.
If you're working with the sourdough starter, you have discard.
Oh,
Although
yeah,
I have
yeah.
learned how to not have discard, but this is from and I have tons of discard from the last 2 days because of what I was doing here. So these are sourdough discard cookies. Just, you can see it.
There you go.
And then they
People
are
can
going in here for 20 minutes.
What now?
320. And I have a series of documents that I will email to everybody.
Oh, great.
With things that you should buy, books that are useful. And so if somebody could open up that refrigerator, the other side, and there is a plastic bag on the top shelf. If you could give that to me. All right. This is a dough that has gone through what is affectionately and very politically incorrect called a cold retard.
Okay.
Cold
Well, slowing
inhibits,
down.
inhibits fermentation, and the refrigerator is cold, and that is what it is called. It is called a cold retard. So this was finished up yesterday at around 8 o'clock at night, put in the refrigerator, and now I'm going to bake it. So in order to bake it, and I forgot to dust this. Hopefully it's gonna, oh, good. Come out. All right, so before you bake it, you need to slash it. And some people make all these intricate designs. I don't. I make one cut at an angle because for some reason it's desirable to get an ear. And I'll talk about that in a moment. That one I baked earlier this morning has an ear. Now the oven has been on for an hour at 500. I will turn it down to 480 when this gets in and steamed. So my Dutch oven is in the oven.
Oh, you
Try
have
very
a Dutch
hard.
oven.
Yeah, you have to. What you do not do is put the lid, the hot lid on the glass. That is a bad thing to do. And I should have the other glove on. See, I'm losing all this temperature in my oven, but what the hell? You'll forgive me. There.
So that's parchment, right?
Yes, that's parchment paper. Lots and lots of water. Then, yeah,
Interesting.
do not forget that this is
Oh.
really hot.
And you do the lid too.
And we'll get as much water in there as you can.
Oh, really good mix.
There.
What is the steaming?
Crust.
That makes the crust. If you don't do that, the crust is really bland. So that is going to be in for, let's try 15 minutes.
You can do two
Into the
sets, two
timer.
different times?
15.
Just two different ovens.
The two different.
Oh, what was the other one?
The cookies on the top.
Oh, that's why I can't set the time.
Yeah, you've got the time on.
Do you want me to
your
time?
cookies.
I'll time 15 minutes on my
Yeah, we need
phone.
to
So what was the time on here? I already forgot.
Was it 20 minutes?
It was, but what was
Must be
it?
like 15 now.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
like
you
that.
probably went through 5 minutes.
So do you want me to do 15 minutes on timer? Or 14 now? Or do you have?
Oh, first,
I
I
just set
always
the.
forget to turn the temperature down.
Okay, so you're gonna change that. to
And
40.
sometimes it doesn't, I don't know if it matters.
What
Let
do you
me-
turn
let me
down
get
to?
this.
Well,
Sorry.
it probably went
Did you
down
put it on the
anyway
middle?
because you had the
No,
door open.
for
No, it
a-
was on the low. It was on the low.
It's on the low, but I
Just
she may
turn-
have taken the right.
And now I
one.
can't
noticed it on
see.
mine at the
This is being
bottom.
recorded, right?
Way too big. Plus, there, I was wondering.
Thank you.
Rack that it's on.
480. Enter. There. And see, it's below 480 now.
Yeah.
Right,
It's all right.
because it was open.
Right.
Yeah, it'll do it.
So I have the timer going for the bottom.
Okay. And what's in the bottom? The
The bread.
The low.
The bread's in the bottom, the cookies in the top.
Where am I?
What day is it?
What are we doing?
Yeah. Now, this loaf I baked this morning, this is a rye bread. And you can't cut it right away. So I don't know what the crumb looks like. This is the ear. People have this thing about wanting a really big ear on their bread. It makes it a pain in the neck to slice. But I got an ear today and I don't know what the crumb looks like, but we will find out momentarily. You have to wait till it cools in order to slice it. First of all, the flavor continues to develop.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's
Very pretty.
gorgeous.
So you don't invite
I'm
somebody
ready
for
to
dinner
eat.
and then throw it together. Just
All right,
like we
and
do.
this isn't bad.
That's pretty.
I'm not
That is
actually not
beautiful.
Yeah,
If
it
anybody wants to
smells
sniff-
wonderful
if
from
anybody
here.
wants to sniff.
Yeah, I
look
can
at
smell
that
it from
and-
here.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we'll wait till the other one is
Delicious.
done. and
Yeah.
then we'll,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so, and the way I keep it fresh is like that.
Oh, that's
All right.
excellent.
That makes sense.
I
It's so
always put
simple.
saran
I know.
wrap.
The bannetons you don't wash, you don't put in water. I
What
have
is it?
the bannetons.
There's a lot of equipment that goes into this.
You
Oh,
can learn
yeah.
about lots more things.
We have-
with this. So anyway, before I get into equipment, I have to start a couple of other things first.
Sure. Do you want us to hand you stuff?
I will tell you that if I need it.
Okay.
So. I'm gonna start another dough, because I want you to see what the dough looks like from scratch.
Can you, yeah, you'll bring it over
I'm
here.
coming over. Here I am. So here is one of my starters that I got up this morning and I fed it again at 7. That's where it was at 7. Sometimes they tell you to put a rubber band on the jar for the level. Rubber bands, A, break, and 2, move.
Right.
So, and on glass, if you use glass, this washes off. And then at 9:30, it was up here.
Oh, wow.
The reason why I wanted to make sure it was labeled is because it's going to get to a certain point where it will start to deflate.
Mm.
And it didn't matter, I'm using it for this dough because that's what I
Did it
have.
grow that much in that small amount of time because you're feeding it a lot?
You have to feed it a lot, and we'll get into feeders. As soon as I get
Yeah.
this
That's what I
going
wanna
and
know.
those going, then we're gonna talk about feeders. So part of what I'm going to be giving you in that email file is your test loaf.
Ooh,
Now, this is from a woman
I
called
did a test loaf.
called Teresa Greenway, and I'll talk about her more when I talk about the starter. So this looks dirty because I just put the other dough that I started earlier
Yeah.
this morning in from here to
Oh,
there.
You have a fabulous scale.
This scale, I got Teresa Greenway recommended this scale. All right, so I don't need this.
My daughter has.
can
Maureen
see
and I
why
have
Sherry
skills,
does
but we
it
only
expensive.
weigh yarn.
I have a Weight Watchers scale.
So,
Well,
I have scales.
scales.
I weigh
That-
food
that
in
Beth and
ounces
Beyond's
because of Weight
Yeah.
Watchers, you need grams for
I
this.
Right, I
Yeah.
weigh.
So, and my other one wouldn't go quickly from one to the other, so it was worth it to me to get this scale. So with this on it, it's then tiered. The recipe calls for 120 grams of a vigorous sourdough starter, and that's what we have here. So this was part of the equipment that you need. This is part of the equipment that you need. I have several of these. What do you call them? Things. All right, so we need, what did I say, 120 grams? You can do something that's called a float test, or I could take a little bit of this and drop it in some water to
Mhm.
see if it floats. It does. Did I?
That's 163.
Did
you
zero
zero
it
it out?
Yeah, that's, I forgot this was twice as much as I need. I wanted to make a lot.
133,
111.
111, 118. It has moved yet. 120.
120.
Perfect. All right. So this is my leftovers. This is what's
It takes
called the
2 people, I
discard.
can
Now,
tell you that.
normally I wouldn't have this
Well, I know
much
that.
discard, but I made extra so that I would have stuff to give to anybody if they wanted some. Really, all you need is maybe 10 grams. You just don't need much. You will make more. All right, so
So
that's
where do you
that.
make the more from that?
That we're coming
Oh,
to that. Okay. Right now, I just want to get this started and those started, because that's the way you evaluate how much gluten is in your flour. So 250 grams of water. No, that's the
not
water that I
water.
use for my hands.
Right.
So 250 grams. Water is the only thing whose volume and weight are consistent. So you could measure 250 mLs also, but I always weigh it.
What hydration are you doing?
I knew someone was going to ask me that. I'm doing 67% hydration. I only know that because it says so.
She's a brainiac.
Well, I've learned a
No.
lot.
What does that mean?
No, it's
How
not.
much-
I've been doing 80 and it's too
100%.
hard. And I went down
Oh,
to
that's going to
70.
be too wet.
It's too hard, and so I did 70 this week.
One-
It was a lot easier.
The hydration is the amount of water to flour. Flour is always 100%. So if this is 67% hydration, there's 67% as much water as flour.
Okay.
The more water that you have, the harder, the stickier the dough is. This test loaf is easy to do, which is why Teresa Greenway, who got me started and helped me make this.
I can
I
smell
smell
it.
the cookies. Or the bread, something to
Mhm.
smell.
Doesn't matter what it is.
All right, so I
Smells
need
really good.
250 grams of water. And if you always weigh your thing out
Mhm.
separately, your item out separately, then when you screw up, you can recover.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's close enough. And Teresa will go to the.
No, you got it. Oh, it's
Close
51.
All right, so that goes in here and gets mixed. And then
Stuff
we
to the
want
sides.
400 grams of bread flour.
Do you
So,
always use bread flour?
well, we're going to be talking about flours. I have this demo set up
Oh,
here.
okay.
I
Okay.
more behind you.
Why?
Yes, I always do use bread flour.
She's
You don't-
invested in flour.
I'm crazy. I'm a little bit.
I get a
neurotic.
lot.
When I do something, I jump in 2 feet too, so don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want 400 grams of bread flour.
Which one is that?
So the bread flour that I'm using is this. It's White Lily. And I have another bag of it back there. I may need some of that.
Where do you get that?
No, that one.
And that's on the sheet that you're going to be getting handed out. I buy this online. So 400 grams, that's tiered. May not be enough.
358, 399,
Oh,
Four
got
oh
it.
four.
Look at that.
404.
Wow.
You just take a look.
That's
There,
right.
I know
400.
that.
I like your head going.
Now, Miriam, did you do
No,
this
I mean it
before the
like that.
pandemic or is this just since the
I
pandemic?
started in February.
Yeah, that's what I
All
thought.
right, so now this says to add the sea salt now, 9 grams. There are several recipes which are sometimes called formulas with sourdough. Teresa Greenwell calls them formulae. There's a small little white dish over there. I think here it is.
This one?
Yeah, thank you. And if you open up that cabinet, there'll be on the second shelf, the other side, there's a thing of spoons, mixing spoons up.
No, I see.
Up
You want the
higher.
other ones?
Yeah, that's it, thank you.
I have a set like that, like this.
So
Wash my
hands.
Me too.
I'm gonna tear this. So I want 9 grams of sea salt. Sally, the sea salt is behind you.
Is it?
I organized this morning, so I knew where
Good
things
girl.
were. So 9 grams is about a teaspoon, but you can't rely on it. And salt is important because too much, well, it retards the fermentation.
Yeah.
What's the difference between using sea salt and regular iodine salt? I know they're different
Size.
size.
They just have different nutrients in them.
Okay.
Can you put that back over there so the other way? All right, so I'm just gonna add this and sprinkle it in, although it will get mixed in. Sometimes there are some recipes, and I'm gonna talk about one in the Tartine bread book, where the salt is added after the initial rest period. And that's to allow
Yeah, I could,
Yes, no.
And the bottom is still
It's
going?
got 3 minutes.
Okay. So that one, you mix all the stuff together but you don't add the salt. And then you put the salt on top and then you fold it in and it does get mixed in over time. Now this is messy. The reason why I'm doing it initially with the spoon will become obvious as soon as I stick my hand in here.
It sticks.
It's all over,
Right.
you know, it just sticks to you.
Yeah.
And if you have a wetter dough, more sticks to you. So I get it initially mixed in and then I do
love
this.
doing this, the feeling.
yeah.
It's therapeutic.
And once I've gotten used to working with different flours, I can really feel that this has gluten already. And you'll see when we do this next little evaluation what I'm talking about. So you see, this is, and Teresa Greenway, when she does this in her demo, she gets every single little bit of flour off of
Is she
this.
somebody like who's on YouTube or something?
Yeah.
Who is she?
Okay.
Oh, YouTube.
And I don't know how I found her initially, but it's probably because I was just looking for sourdough starters and I followed her directions and it took 2 weeks. And I did everything that she said. I weighed, and I don't follow recipes. I'm notorious.
That's.
But I followed those recipes and I did the discard. And in the beginning, you really do need to throw it out. All right, so here we go.
I admire what you're doing.
Yeah.
I really admire all of this.
There was a lot of organization because I wanted to be able to show you all of the different steps. And in order to do that, I really had to prepare a lot of
Oh, yeah.
doughs because I've got one in there that I started at 9:30 this morning. And when I go to do its folding, that won't stick to me at all. So normally I would try to get more of this off of my hands, but I think I'm gonna call it quits now. Stay.
Stay. I've been watching this guy, I forget his name, Mike something, but he has Sourdough University.
Oh, yeah, there's just,
Really?
there's endless things to look at online.
I watched one on Masterclass. I can't
Alright.
remember the man's name.
All right, so I am now going to move over to the sink. Now, a word about putting this stuff down your sink.
Oh.
Do not throw your discard down the sink.
Oh, really?
yeah.
No, no, no.
Unless you
I've
have friends with a
composted
plumber.
now, but normally I don't have very much. But this will clog up your drains big time.
You need a little drain off.
I guess I was like,
No, that's okay, but I usually-
well, it could.
Just
but
the
not
starter
that
of
way.
the pink Lambert salt.
I make pizza with it.
Yeah,
You do?
good idea.
Okay, your time's up on the bottom oven.
All right, so on the bottom oven, first we take off our glasses because they get really foggy.
I know that.
What a beautiful.
The beautiful kitchen.
Oh,
Wish I had a
yeah.
kitchen.
Well, I live in an apartment. My
Countertops.
stove
So
just
you can
turns on
take a
and off.
peek at
There's
this.
nothing.
Oh, you can see.
Oh,
You
wow.
can see that I
That's
have it
just
here,
Yeah.
all right? And I've gotten a good, what's called oven spring.
Okay.
I'm putting this down here and I'm leaving this on it to remind me that it's really hot and it will stay really hot for a while.
Tell me to time this
Do
one.
you think you got a
Yeah.
good
How
oven
long?
spring?
It's good enough for me.
No, I mean because of how vital your
15.
starter was? Or like?
Yes.
Yes.
And also, I did all the fold and turns and so on and so forth. So, all right, before I put, that's the cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
So this is,
Cookies.
this is,
wow.
this is
Never would have thought to.
a sourdough cookie.
I'm gonna give this a little bit longer.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you were-
Setting the kitchen timer, I'm gonna give it another 5 minutes and look at it again. All right, I may give it another 5 after that. All right, so next, can you put this over there, because I'm done with this now. Oh, but I have to put this in my crucifer. But the other,
Is that that?
yeah, but the other dough is in there,
Oh.
so. But I'm gonna take
Yeah, I
the
have
other
to add
dough
more
out of
kitchen.
there.
She's jumped into this.
All the stuff.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
wanna
we're
marry
gonna-
them.
I have a proofing setting on my oven.
Oh, really?
I do
Yeah.
too. I do
You
too.
do?
Yeah.
Fancy.
I always
We
use it
might.
for when I'm
We
doing
might.
We might on
Olive
our
oil.
own.
Maybe I'll do it. for this.
Or you might on your, I have microwave.
I have it on my microwave and my oven.
Only up or only down?
It's only down.
Mine does up and down.
So in the winter, you put it in the
Because I don't have the
proofer.
options on the upper or the down. I never knew what my
Right.
proofer was
I don't
for.
think
No, I
it's-
don't.
I don't know. Swear I saw
So
it.
I'm gonna give it another half hour. All right,
We're
so
not gonna argue.
No, but by
actually, I
accident.
need that water
That's
back.
what I'm looking for.
Before you go out too.
Thank
I
you.
wasn't looking for it. I checked
Kept
options
thinking,
for something else.
People really need to proof this much.
I didn't do it.
Don't you
I
have a
didn't
whole
say
thing
what
on
it
the
is.
All right,
Yeah,
so I am, what I have in each one of these little dishes, and I think to make this work better.
This is like on TV where you just, they said it's so simple, but it takes me forever to measure.
I'm going to, no, we'll just leave it.
So they time.
All right, so I want a small container, look at this, I want a small container to measure 10 ml. So what I have to test the flours to see how much gluten they have in them, how good they're going to be for bread. I have 10 grams of flour, and I'm going to add to that, each one of those 10 grams of water.
Which is the same as 10 ml.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And it's pretty important in this case to get it right, to get it exact, because it's such a small volume. But really, you'll see after these develop that it's pretty. I should have a dropper. There you go, it's close enough. Because this one, that's the all-purpose.
They're the different flowers.
Yeah, they're all different
Or I
flowers.
see them sitting in this fine, all purpose.
I bet you have them, you order.
Stone
them.
Garden. This is,
And another one.
Oh, there's another one down there too.
Is that the
Yeah.
gluten free?
Yeah.
No, there is no gluten free here. Well, then that's one drop too much, which. All right, so then I just mix these up. Oh, Sammy, I feel on my door.
I'm so quiet, my dog would be barking.
What's the reason for finding out how much gluten is in each kind of flour?
Because if you want to bake with something and you use the wrong flour, you're gonna get crap.
Oh, I see.
Really? Okay.
Rye bread is made with the rye, this has about 30%
Mhm.
rye flour in it,
Okay.
and the rest is wheat. And if you use all rye flour, it has no gluten.
Oh, okay.
Are there wheat bread flours?
Yeah, the bread flours are wheat. It's a hard winter wheat. That's what it's called. So this Castle Valley Stone
Oh,
Ground,
I got that.
this is fantastic flour. This is by far my favorite flour, but this is whole wheat.
I just used that one.
And it
It's
has a lot of gluten in it, but because it's whole wheat, the particles will tear the gluten strands. It still makes pretty good flour. And when I mix whole wheat in with my flour, this is mostly what I use, although I have recently discovered einkorn flour.
I've heard of that too.
All right, so that was the cookies. Let me finish this and then I'll get back to, I'll check the cookies. Now, these are the two that are the winners.
The bread flours.
Well, the hard whole wheat, the Castle Valley Stone Ground is also a bread flour, but it's whole wheat. I mean, you can just see how gummy this is.
Oops, excuse me.
So we're gonna let this be sit for 10 minutes or so.
Good experiment.
And I don't know where I found this. There was something online where somebody, so both timers are going off now.
No, it's just your cookies. The other
Just the
ones you have 8.5 more minutes.
The bottom?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was your total, what's your total bake time on the bread? 15 plus what?
15 plus 15 or 20 plus something like that.
So it was 15, and then she took the top.
And you did it at 4.
Yeah, these are done.
Your other mitts on top of the lid.
Wondering how- yeah, but
Oh, there's
you
another one
did
over
that.
here.
Right here.
Yeah. All right, so these are done. That can go off. We are
Oh, I
not
have to take
gonna
my
move
contract.
that lid
Yeah,
with
don't
my
look at
hands.
No, I didn't say, I'm watching to make sure you get. you do that here.
So long as you have
Leave
your
that
starter
All
going,
right.
the more expensive.
All right, so we're gonna give, now we're done with this. We're gonna find that.
Yeah.
What time is it?
I heard that you were
1:30.
like,
Yeah, all right, so where is that other dough?
if it's
Oh,
got
here it is.
buzz
Okay.
on it and stuff, I've heard you can like sort of find it
So
on
this is
fuzzy
the
spots
exact
and
same
use that.
dough, the
Start
exact
a new
same
one.
flour that I
Yeah,
used
start.
with that stuff.
Okay.
there,
Yeah,
and
just
it's
put the
also
ruler-
in there, yeah.
And you mix it up.
So you saw what that texture looked like?
It's like alcohol.
So I'm gonna do a series of what's called stretch and folds. So this is just water that I use so my hands don't stick to it. So I can now pick this up. And it's very, very different, and that's because the gluten has developed. So
How long does it take for that to develop?
I did this at 9:30 this morning. I put it in. So this is its fourth set of stretch and folds, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1:30. All right. So- And then sometimes it just doesn't do it.
Stretch
so-
enough.
Yeah.
This part.
And the other part is that somebody who's once talking about how they they liked their coil folds better.
Oil, what's in that?
And the coils, you just take it from the middle and it coils down and folds over. It's hard to mix them up. I could do a coil if I did the first one as a coil. So this is now done and it's ready to rest and then be shaped. So what I'm going to do is move this. Because you're supposed to give it a bench rest of about
Was that the
15
same amount of
minutes.
folds you do every time?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And how
So-
many did you do?
4.
Wow.
I
that's
just,
it.
I turn it for, and if you do more, and it's supposed, according to Teresa Greenway, you wait an hour.
But
There
if
have
you
been
do more
times-
than 4, is it gonna affect the dough?
I don't think so. There are times I do less.
Excuse me, where's your back?
Oh, just go past that wall and make a left. So, there'll be more about this in a moment. I'll get on to starter now. I'm just taking this out and it's doing its bench rest for, they
Nice.
say 40 minutes or so, but I don't think it matters. You just put that in the sink.
Magic of two.
All right, so starter.
Julia.
This is the rye starter. This is rye starter, in case anybody wants any. Rye starter doesn't get as bubbly as the other. In fact, this has already started to deflate, which doesn't mean that there aren't bugs in here, but it's just, it doesn't look as pretty. And I don't use all rye. It really wasn't doing much, so I put in half all-purpose flour and half rye flour.
Did
All
that.
right,
Oh,
so-
I did that with my
I
bread
This
always-
is
flour.
the
I always do
starter.
bread flour and starter.
I
All
did with
purpose
half
is
bread
fine.
and half regular white. flour.
I don't know where I got started on the all-purpose, but I think that was Teresa Greenway. I'm not really sure, but I
My
could try.
nephew did it. That's
I
why
could
I
try
just
to-
followed what he did.
Yeah,
do
I
that.
don't think it matters. a whole
cheaper.
lot. What is
Throw so
buzzing
much of it
now?
out.
He just did it.
Well, not
I
use
just
the good
followed what he
flour.
did.
Is this fake? Is this
No, you
fake?
got 4 minutes left on the bottom. I don't know about the top.
There's nothing in the top. I don't
Oh,
think.
okay, yeah.
she took the cookies.
There's 4 minutes from the
All right,
15.
yeah,
that
it
when we
still
started
needs
it.
some time, I can see it. All right, so the starter. This is the one that I used this morning. So that's all I have left. Now, believe it or not, there are 30 grams in here. And there are 30 grams of starter in here. Now, how do I know that? On the bottom of my jar, I have the weight of the jar.
That's smart.
It doesn't look like much of it.
I know.
It's enough to
And it's
start
more,
another batch.
yeah, and it's more than what I wanted. So this says 262. I'm taking the lid off because the weight on the bottom doesn't include that. Whoops. So that says 292. So I have 30 grams of starter in here.
Doesn't look like- Wow.
I know. So now if I wanted to feed that, I want to have much more food than starter. So I'm going to put in 60 grams of water and 60 grams of flour.
Now, do you mix the flour half and half when you do that?
Yeah, I haven't mixed it ahead of time, which I should do. I
Right,
just take
let's say you do
half
30
of
in
that and
each,
half
yeah.
of that. So again, the water that I keep saying I'm done with.
You're-
but I- And this I just
And then you still
generally,
have your water. Oh, you're just doing it there.
I probably should not.
No,
No, leave that
Oh,
alone.
she wants to do it
from the
Oh,
to
no, that
control-
was
to control
stupid.
the
I can't-
flow.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tear this. And zero it. I'm gonna have to bring her out for a moment. She's just. And water weighs a lot. It,
You're at 26,
much of which is on the scale.
25.
So I want 60.
Right. 57, 9. 60, perfect.
All right.
Whoa. It's only water.
I just.
Deep breath.
It's fine.
Can't say with me,
Aren't we all
I
used
use
to that
it
from the
was
grandkids?
last
Never mind the
jar.
kids. the
Now
grandkids
we
never
have
do that.
glass and everything. Yeah. That's what I have.
So I mix that up. Now, normally I would not be doing this because I don't plan on baking again for a while.
Right.
But, you know, for demonstration purposes.
How often, but so, if you did plan on baking for a while, how many times would you feed it before you felt like it was ready?
It depends on how long it had been in the refrigerator.
Let's say it was in
I
the
would,
refrigerator a week or something.
I would feed it the night before. And then I would look at it in the morning, and if it was ready, I would mix my dough in the morning. And if it wasn't ready, or if I wasn't ready to mix my dough till the afternoon, I would feed it in the morning, and then I'm gonna have to bring her out.
Sure.
Well, she's got to go on the leash, I think. Well, hang on.
Would she not settle down once?
Oh, she will settle down, but.
Unless anybody's afraid of dogs. Because usually they do, they get to know everybody's here and they lay down somewhere.
If she doesn't
Yeah.
settle down.
Okay.
All right, so,
She just wants to be out there.
yeah,
Well, I'm impressed that she can be out here and not be up there.
all right, so I want 30 grams of this, and that's too much. So that's the, oh, that was here. All right. And then I want the hard whole wheat, the bread flour. Whole wheat. Whole wheat with lots of good stuff in it. So this now should read 60.
30 of each.
Yeah,
That's the timer for
for the bread, okay.
see it brown enough.
So that's 160.
60. Almost.
Mhm.
There you go, there you go.
All right.
So that was how much?
60.
30 and 30.
30 and 30, okay, gotcha.
60 total.
So 60, 60 water and 30 starter.
All right, so let me see how this
Right.
looks.
You're such a nice dog. You sure are.
I'm going to check the temperature. So this is another thing that's on your list, which I will email you later of your equipment. You need an instant read thermometer. So I look for something around 200 degrees, 210, something like that. So. Sammy, that's not nice. All right, so that's not quite 200 yet. I'm gonna give it another 5 minutes.
My racks are like.
We got you every time.
Oh, I got it.
We have the timer going. All right, don't
Thank
worry.
you.
All right.
It's the least we can do.
It's a nice looking clock.
Her time.
She's a very nice. Part of
I
the
know
phone.
she
She's a
is.
very
She
nice
is such a
dog.
good dog.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry I
not
had to
a lot-
lock you in there, Sammy, but that's the way it goes.
You're being very good. dog.
She loves people.
Yeah.
She just wants
Yeah.
to be with people.
My neighbor's dog's the same way.
So this just gets mushed up. Some people on the Facebook group called Perfect Sourdough is where I get so much information from. You have
I'm
to
under that.
apply to join it, and I don't remember what I did to get in. That's another one of Teresa Greenwald's thing.
What's her name? Lisa?
Teresa Greenwald.
Teresa
It's,
Greenwald.
again, it's something that I'm gonna email all of you.
Teresa Greenway.
Greenway, something like
Greenway.
that, I think. If you Google her, she'll show up. So there it is, and that's the
starter.
feeding. That's the starter feeding. And
Look how it goes all the way up to the line you have already there.
well, because that's the amount that I used before. So and then I'll just leave this out for now. At some point I'll
So
find.
you put
Okay,
double
thank
the
you.
amount of,
Yeah, at least
water.
double. All right, so I'm gonna let these sit for a little bit longer. Well, until the bread is done. And these starters are just for giving away some samples if anybody wants it.
Now you're using that, but if you want to make like 2 loaves, then what would you do?
I
You'd have to
have
wait for that to,
I have 2 ovals and 1.
oh, so you just keep, or you keep like 2 at a time or
I think she's talking about the starters.
the starters?
Oh, the starters.
Yeah, I'm never
No,
sure what
no,
to do.
I'm sorry. If you take some starter from me,
Mhm.
you take a small amount, take it home, put it in a jar that you know the weight of.
Right.
Weigh it first, put it on the bottom. And then add at least twice as much water. So I had 30 grams of starter. I put in 60 grams of water
Right.
and 60 grams of flour. Okay. And then let it sit at room temperature. Room temperature is fine. Before I got that proofing oven, which by the way collapses, those walls fold down.
Yeah.
That fits into a
That's cool.
flat drawer.
Wow.
It's really cool. I was using the oven and I would, with the light on. So just the oven light. And it would get too hot. It was over 100 degrees and that kills some of the yeasts. I think it kills something. It wasn't good. So then I propped the door open. I had a rolled towel and I propped the door open and I wasn't able to get a consistent temperature, which is why I finally went and got that thing. And
Oh, okay.
I love it because situations like today where I want to speed up the
Mm.
fermentation,
Mhm.
I just put these starters in there and crank them.
Really?
Yeah, cranked it up to 75 degrees.
How long do the starters?
You have a minute and a half on
Okay.
the 5 minutes that we did.
Because I have an old one. It's a couple, like months old. Should I throw that
Oh,
one out?
the starter? No,
No?
feed it. Starters last years.
Well, it's in my refrigerator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
check it out.
they
like
last
it's
years.
okay for sure, Yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
they don't go bad.
Oh,
They
okay.
are bad to start with.
Yeah. It's
So
fermenting.
this is
yeah.
reading, this
Never
is
know.
reading 204 degrees. So I'm turning that off. And the reason why the long arms are good on this is because you burn the side of your arm on
Yeah,
the.
I was gonna say, how many times you burn yourself? I would-
Well, I haven't done that on here yet, but I used to burn wood in a wood fireplace and I was always getting burns. I have scars all over. So anyway, listen. Oh, okay.
It's gorgeous.
That's beautiful.
There it is.
That is good.
Yeah.
Lead up to
Made it
doing
look
all
so
this takes
easy.
longer than putting
The
it together and
baking,
baking.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
shocked.
it's
The
the lead
baking
up to
took
making
yeah.
everything takes a whole lot longer.
Do you have pictures of your pumpkin?
All right.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Go
Go
screen
screen
share.
share.
Yeah.
Why don't you pose with your friend? No, you can't. No, that was the 5 minutes. Yeah. All right, look over here.
There
Turn
you
it
go.
here so everybody can see it.
Yeah, like
That's
that's better. That's
Perfect.
great.
All right, now look at me.
There,
She
there.
makes wine, but she makes.
Wait, transfer the glass.
I have-
The bags under my eyes. Don't
Ready?
show as much.
But it's wonderful.
Gorgeous. Nice.
All right.
I don't have the space.
Are you the historian?
I'll take pictures, send them. Send them to Jerry. Yeah, send them to. Is that who I sent them? Well, Jerry's membership. I never knew who to send. Well, actually, you're a rabbi. I am a membership, but you know.
You want me to send
I sent him to rabbi.
Betsy,
Oh, she's
could I
actually-
interest you
actually
in writing a
Betsy.
little blurb for the
All right,
newsletter?
so
Can I interest you in writing a little blurb for the newsletter?
Are you
with
in charge of the
photographs?
newsletter?
a few more words about the starter. I want to finish about the starter. When I started the starter, I was doing exactly what Teresa Greenway or Greenlaw told me to do, which is a certain amount of flour, a certain amount of water, mix it up. And I was trying to keep it warm, so I put it on the mantle, that fireplace where it was warmer, and I was monitoring the temperature up there, and then every day, well, in the beginning, you didn't throw it out every day, you didn't have discards, you just fed it. And then you started discard, and she said that it will, in the beginning, when the good bacteria and yeast have not taken over yet, the bad bacteria and yeast will make it smell bad. It doesn't mean that it's rotten. Don't throw it out. Mine never really smelled bad that I could tell. But I did what she said, and eventually I got a really nice bubbly dough. So could we go to screen share or
Yeah.
not screen sharing, but I.
And you keep it in the.
For the, you're talking about the.
Yeah, so I could show a
Okay.
picture.
Wait, let me,
But also.
what you say, it's, let me go to screen share first and get the,
Actually,
And-
we're not zooming this, but
desktop.
but we are
Let
imaging
me
it, so we do wanna.
move this out of the way.
But if you want Abe to share it, it has to be on his computer.
Yeah, Right.
Well, let me close this. I don't need.
all right, I'll keep going when he
Okay,
gets
so-
there, we'll get
Now,
there.
where did
Oh.
you say you keep your starter?
If I'm planning on baking again, let's say I was gonna bake tomorrow. Well, this one isn't gonna last. This one, I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator. This is just gonna be for safekeeping. The one that I just fed, which is over here, I would put in there and it will start bubbling up. And in a couple of hours, it will be up to here. Not a couple, but maybe 4 hours.
Well, like that, you're not gonna use.
I'm just loose. I mean, it's pretty hard to put the lid on tight now because of all the crud.
So that one you're gonna use later. you should put in.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually get rid
Okay.
of most of the discard. I already have jars of discard in the refrigerator.
Mary, which
Okay,
file?
So,
Which one?
But then I was
Um,
making something, and I didn't
I
have
think we
enough.
need to.
Let's
Yeah,
go down
but
and
enough
just like
space.
slope of this stuff.
This confuses me the most.
Can you also freeze it?
yeah, you can.
You don't
Here,
really
early
make it raw.
starter on the mantle,
Like one of
that
mine
one.
said 150
Alright, let me open
milligrams of starch. Or grams.
Yeah.
Is that a lot?
Well, I used 120
Oh, you
for the
did?
loaf, yeah.
Oh, I was thinking,
So there's
Oh, yeah.
also a process called an autolyse,
so how did you get enough of the starter?
because I made more. I had,
That's what's getting me all
I'm
confused.
sorry, in this one, I had 30 grams of starter.
Okay.
And then I put in 60 of water and 60 of
And that's
Flour.
used for the.
bread that I just
I
made.
think
But I made, for this one, I wanted more because I was going to
Yeah,
be
so-
giving some away and making several loaves and, you know. So I put in like, I had 100 grams of starter because I had built it up over the week. And then I put in 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour. All right. So you can, okay, so,
Okay, do we have that on screen share now?
all right, so come take a look at this one. This was, whoops, we lost it. There it
There
is.
you go.
All right, so this was my early starter. And it was obviously pretty warm on the mantle and it bubbled over and it made a pretty big mess.
And that came from like.
Note
the
to
one
self,
you just-
don't do
Yeah.
that.
That came
There was
from what I
only like
made.
about that size.
Well, I don't know how much I had in there
About.
because I didn't know what I was doing then.
Early days.
So, yeah.
Just work that from her memory.
So, and then, so can we close this one? Can you close?
I'll close this, yes.
Yeah. And then today's starters were,
You can move that over. Okay.
I thought I had today's starters on here, but maybe I didn't. All right. No, those are documents. All right, so this was my very first loaf that I ever baked,
Nice job.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
which is the exact same thing as this.
Oh.
All right, it was this recipe, formula, excuse me, whatever. All right. So getting back to starters, when I made the rye flour, I just want to get this book out, Abraham,
Sure.
I'm sorry. The Rye Baker. It shows you have to be careful with what you read. I followed the instructions on here to make my rye starter. It said it would be ready in a week.
I don't know if I.
And in a week, it smelled like acetone,
I'll stop.
which is what I knew from the earlier experience, even though
I don't know
mine didn't
where.
smell, but Teresa said that it would smell bad. It could smell like turpentine or whatever. So I went on to the Facebook site and I asked them and they said, feed it more. It's not ready yet.
Right.
Stop.
And I waited another week and
I
sure
have to
enough,
close that.
it worked well. My first loaf of rye bread I made from a recipe from this book. And it had
Okay.
several more steps. It used something, you made a sponge. And basically what a sponge is, you use a little bit of the culture for the starter, some of your flour and water, and you let it sit for a while. That was on day one. Day two, you use your sponge with some other things that you combine. You wait a little bit longer. And then you, at the end of day two, you assemble the dough. And that's also similar to what's called an auto lease step, which I've only done that a couple of times, but basically an auto lease is instead of taking all of your starter and putting it in with your flour and water right away, you use a little bit of your starter and some of your flour and some of your water, and you let it sit for a while. And then you add the rest of the stuff. So you don't need as much starter. Some people think you get a better loaf. I haven't done enough to realize what the difference would be. So I don't come out as dark.
These are beautiful.
I think that's a Dutch oven. You
Yeah.
had a Dutch oven?
It didn't come out.
I only have an oval one, but it won't matter if it just sits in the middle.
Yeah,
right? If it's gonna
it
make,
shouldn't matter.
no, if it
Oh,
makes
you
that
make it
size of a
oval.
loaf, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like
My
mine
son
was-
was making these huge loaves, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
could I
have
have
that
this
nice-
bread, please?
You
Abraham?
can use it.
Or- All right,
All
so this is the only loaf that I really recommend you get. Tartine bread. Tartine in San Francisco sourdough people.
Oh, okay.
All right. They have a loaf in here that I just love. They call it their, but anyway, before I get to that, I made their rye bread. That's what this is.
Wow.
And their rye bread, they have great pictures in here. Their rye bread doesn't use yeast. It just use your sourdough starter. And it was pretty much made the same way that everything else that I make is done. So, and I think it came out just fine, and we will get to taste that shortly. One thing to realize is that most of these recipes or formulae come for 2 loaves. Divide it
Oh,
in
really?
half. Yeah, just divide it in half and it works just fine.
Can I ask you
Alright.
something about the starter?
Sure.
You had those marks and you saw that it came up. What if you don't see that it comes up? Like you do it overnight?
If it's not budging at all, then.
No, I mean, you don't know, like it might have gone up and then come back,
Well, then you have to do it at a different period of time where you can watch
where you
it.
can actually watch
Yeah.
it. Oh, okay.
So I want to start working on shaping this, because that's something that I haven't done yet, and then we'll take a look at that dough. and
Mary,
see
can
what
I
that
ask you,
looks like.
your countertop is cold and you're using cold metal. That doesn't affect the bread at all? When I make bread, I try to keep everything kind of the same temperature, room temperature.
Well,
But this is cold.
It's room temperature.
Yeah.
It takes heat away from your body, so it feels cold.
Oh, okay.
All right, so the steps in shaping your loaf. And if you watch things online, they do it so much easier and so much better than what I do. If your dough is wet, you're gonna have a really hard time with this. And so I put a lot of flour down on here. We will get around to talking about the flour in a minute. This is also whole wheat flour. I have this already, King Arthur whole wheat. I don't use this for anything other than dusting. I don't bake with it. I mean, maybe it's all right, I don't know, but that is so much better. The Castle Valley is so much better. So when you go to shape your dough, the pre-shape, and that's after the bench rest, which we just had.
Right.
The pre-shape is basically to get a tight skin. So what people do online, what I see them do is they just take this thing and they move it around and it gets really tight and doesn't
Right,
stick to
right.
their hands. And I don't know how the hell they do that. It sticks to my hands.
Okay.
And if you have any whole wheat in here at all, which I usually do, when I'm baking for myself, I always have a certain percentage of whole wheat in there. It's going to stick like crazy. So I sprinkle flour on the counter, even though they say you don't want to add flour to the thing, you just sprinkle it on top, forget it. You can't do this.
Right, yeah. I
So,
know how they do
and these are invaluable. So, and it's still sticking to my hand.
I usually like.
All right, so this is now pre-shaped.
Very perfect.
I think it's like,
Beautiful.
it's such a big deal to
It
do
is
it. It takes
beautiful.
no time. It's like
Yeah.
having your kids over for dinner. You
Right,
cook
it's
and cook
just-
and cook and that's it.
I know.
How fast that was.
So that is now pre-shaped. And
Yeah,
all I
we
did was
can
try to
walk it.
tighten the skin. And now you're supposed to let it sit for yet another 15 minutes. All right, but while we're doing that, I forgot about these. All right, so this is the Karen Springs Mills, which I also got online. This has like a 13 to 14% protein, which means 13 to 14% gluten. And I get this online and you can get what's called a window pane out of this. So
Wow.
before it stretches, you can make it kind of transparent.
Oh,
All right. And if anybody wants to play with this, feel free. It's always fun. So this is the best flour.
That's the best.
You want to try it? You can feel it. All right, this flour is the white lily. This is what I use. This is my mainstay, which I generally get on. I get this online. This also, it doesn't tear. Well, it's tearing. What can I say? But I can pull it apart some before it tears. All right, so this is sticking together. All right, and again, this is one thing that I'm going to email you.
And what was the gluten in the second one?
I don't, it doesn't
yeah,
have the percentage listed on it. So this, I believe, was
Yeah, you moved that one out of the way. That's
this
this
one.
one.
All right, so this is whole wheat, but this is bread flour, but it's whole wheat. And so you're not going to be able to get that pulling apart because what do you call them? The particles of the whole wheat very well.
Oh,
But it's still not doing bad. It's holding together pretty well.
wow.
All right.
See the difference? No. Oh, feels so much different.
And then we have our good old all-purpose flour. Nothing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it just breaks apart.
Just breaks apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. And, excuse me, I need to wash your hands. Do a little hand wash.
Oh. They all feel so different.
So while we're waiting for that other loaf to do its final bench rest. Oh, I can do the, oh, the rye, excuse me. Rye is just forget about it, you know, there's no point.
Well, that's why you didn't do it.
I forgot about it. I forgot that I,
Forgot about it.
well, actually, it's doing better.
Better
I've
than
left
the
it
other.
longer.
It's because it was sitting longer.
Yeah, I think so, but there's no. I'd be fooled if I didn't know better. Made a liar out of me. I'll take it from my, there's no gluten in rye.
Okay.
That's right, because the people gluten free can eat raw.
Yeah,
Have to make
and that's
my
because
friend.
it's sat longer than usual, so
Alright.
anyway. What can I say? All right, so here is, so here's
This is
the
the
dough
rye
that I
dough.
just started. And remember how I was able to work this? Well, look at this one now. I'm gonna stick to this. It's a little bit better. It's much better, actually. And this will form a window pane. Whoops. Don't
Famous
quote
last
me on
words.
that.
Sometimes,
There you
if it
go.
wants
There we
to.
go.
And
I
which
mean,
was that one? That was from the
This is-
starter we just made.
Yeah, this is the bread flour, the white lily. All right, so I'm gonna just do a series of stretch and fold. So that was one. Oh no, I can do a coil. We'll do a coil. So the coil, you just kind of let it go down. And do that. I don't think it makes any difference at all. Oh, I know what I wanted to show with this. Hang on.
We're not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
Until we eat, right?
If you wanted to
Yeah,
add
keep on
anything to it, like
Anybody watching on Zoom?
Well,
seeds or
nobody
cheese.
signed up.
Okay.
One person
Here's our Zoom
si-
person.
signed up, but they didn't show up.
Actually, earlier, but I forgot. So, no, actually, at the second stretch and fold, you do it. And, you know, this is where we see Miriam not measuring, not using recipes.
Oh, rice seed?
No, these are
Pepitas.
pepitas and pepitas. I've done this with cheese also. The cheese, I actually looked
Oh,
for
interesting.
a recipe. to
I
see-
tried once, olive and rosemary, but it all ended up like on one part of the bread.
Well, all right, so you need to do a series of stretch and folds to mix it in. Let me do a couple of these and I'll show you another technique that I just found online.
Master the regular.
Yeah, my suggestion at first is don't do anything with whole wheat.
But
Don't do anything with whole wheat. Just start out with your basic.
I did it by mistake. I used whole wheat instead of the bread flour. Not on purpose.
Rye bread is so much stickier than.
Make mine.
Well, how much rye do you put in?
Okay.
See, this rye bread was about 30% rye. All right, so there's going to be 2 more sets of stretch and folds on this before it's ready to be shaped. But there's another technique that I just found online for mixing in something, and I forget what it was called. It was some French thing with an R in it. I love it. You kind of do this.
Okay.
All right. So that's, yeah, but I'm not throwing it in here. And that will,
So how often do you do that?
So that's blending the seeds in.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
But how
problem with
often do the stretch and fold?
4 times basically every hour, or you could do it every half hour. She has it in here, or he has you do it for the first 2 hours every half hour.
Oh,
You're not gonna be bored at all.
no, I know. It took me
And
2
you also
days and it
have
was like
to,
one loaf. Like
Definitely a labor of love. I know, but one loaf out of it.
He also has you add the salt after the fact and then wait for a while. So I want to talk a little bit about fermentation and how I got into this, because this thing is not going to be done during this class, and I will shape that in a little while. So this can go back in that thing there.
And your proofer?
Yeah. All right, so how I got started in this is, well, with the bread, well, first I had, I need a couple more books here, these 2 books. I had bought this book ages ago, Wild Fermentation by this guy, Sandor Katz. Only because it looked interesting, I didn't do anything with it. And then my sister-in-law in Florida asked me if I wanted to go to a workshop in someplace in South Carolina, where Sandor Katz is from. He was from New York, but he's now there. He's like the fermentation guru of the world. So we ended up not going there. I was Asheville, North Carolina, whatever. But I did go up to Burlington, Vermont, where he gave a workshop at University of Vermont. I have a friend who lives up there. And this is his latest book. So he does all kinds of fermentation. Sandor Katz is known for having beaten AIDS, which he said he did not. He says he wakes up every day and he's HIV positive.
Right.
So what's different from him and his friends who died early on is that he has been eating fermented foods all along. So the nutrients that his friends were not able to digest, he was able to get. So he said he was not cured of AIDS by any means, but he was able to survive it because of eating fermented foods. And my sister was married to a Sephardic Israeli, and they're really into fermented vegetables. So her sister-in-law, my sister's sister-in-law, was over from Israel once when I happened to have had a urinary tract infection. And this woman said to my sister, tell her to eat more sauerkraut. It works.
Sauerkraut, really?
Anything fermented, and you cannot use the stuff that has been canned or sealed by heat because it kills the bacteria. So
You mean at like a farmer's market or something?
no,
like
sauerkraut, you can
refrigerated
get, yeah, and
pickles
the
that you just made?
refrigerated pickles. I mean, the stuff that we made at your house is fermented. So I've been making, I don't find it helps your gut bacteria. So I think that's good for your stomach, but maybe not. So I just put this up yesterday. I have a whole bunch.
Beautiful.
I have a whole bunch that are already ready. This is brand new. I don't even think, no, I'm not even seeing any bubbles yet. What is a little bit?
What do you have in there? Vinegar, water?
Carrot?
No vinegar.
No vinegar?
Water and salt.
That's it?
What in there? Carrots
and
and
salt.
So tell us what all is in
There's a
there. You have
piece of bread
carrots?
because that supposedly helps
That's
to begin the
potatoes?
fermentation.
So tell us.
So
carrots.
carrots, celery, turnips,
Watermelon
red beet, I mean, orange beet. So I have some in there, but all it looks like is red because the red beet just colored everything over time. So I
And how do
threw
you
this.
get how much you put in? Trial and error? Is it trial and error?
Well, that's why I put in a tablespoon of salt.
Oh, wow.
It tastes about right. And if it's not, if it's too salty, I poured liquid out and pour some more water. And put in some garlic cloves and some, what do you call those leaves? Bay leaves. Keeps them crisp. So I got into fermentation big time. And I mean, when I had a UTI this year, and the last thing I wanted to do during the pandemic was to take an antibiotic and kill my gut bacteria. So I just started eating sauerkraut like crazy.
It doesn't bother your stomach.
That's what I just said.
Oh,
No,
So, but when you say not to buy the canned, would have just made your own or?
No, you can get it in the supermarket.
Don't
in the
buy canned.
refrigerator section.
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
comes in bags like
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah, and
It's a little
I had
tough
a
on
whole
you,
lot of
yes.
this stuff, and I just started eating it.
Yeah.
It's just water and salt.
Water and salt
Well,
and
these-
bacteria.
Maybe it's easier on your stomach.
No, they're from the
Vinegar.
air.
Maybe it's the vinegar.
It's just,
And how
it
long
just
do you
gets
leave
a- well, until I like the way it tastes, so maybe a week. And then I put it in the refrigerator.
So you just leave it on the counter or in a cupboard
Yeah.
somewhere and
Yeah,
until
and
it gets
yeah.
to how you want it and you throw it in
Yeah.
the fridge.
So
Yeah,
Mary,
and
is
if-
that like kimchi? Is it the
Yeah,
similar to
kimchi is also fermented.
So when you
So
say the
I
one in
think
the
she's- I-
refrigerator is red,
Well,
will
it's how
this
you make
turn
it,
red
yeah.
too?
No, because this doesn't have red beets. in it. That has,
So that's what you
orange
learned
beets
from
You
in it.
that.
let it ferment on the counter, but
Yeah.
after it ferments, you can put it in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
So the stuff you buy at the grocery store, it fermented
Somewhere.
somewhere, and then they put it in the
But
refrigerator.
that tastes like vinegar.
I know it
I've
does.
got tons of this
Does
stuff.
yours taste like vinegar?
No, do you want to,
No.
do you want to try some?
Yeah, I think that's like I buy the pickled beets or something and they're very vinegar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
because they're made with vinegar.
Well,
No,
pickled
it's-
beets are.
But I think it's the
she's got
vinegar that
it.
upsets your
Yeah,
Yeah,
stomach.
but she probably fresh.
Yeah,
There's no
So there's
vinegar in
there's
here.
no
You can
vinegar in
pickle
any of this.
but that's different from
But
what
this is
she's doing.
different, yes. And the same thing with pickles, like orange pickles have no vinegar.
Or they don't?
So this is part of my foray into fermentation. Now, the other part of this story is I moved down here 4 years ago. And just as I bought this house, in fact, the day of the closing on the house, my nephew, whom I love dearly, who lives in New Hope, was diagnosed with fortunately, a very not aggressive thyroid cancer. And I worked in radiation oncology, and I know that, I remember when he called me up the day that he got the pathology, and I said, what was it? And he told me, and I just felt my anal sphincter release. Because if it was a different one, he would have been dead in 4 months. So if anybody wants to try this,
What are these?
they're not strongly flavored.
What?
What's the matter, Betsy?
My stomach's empty. I'm gonna.
I think they are.
Can't do
Oh,
that.
okay, yeah.
They're what? What'd you say?
They're very strong.
Are these beets? Beets,
Here's
carrots.
some- You can spit it out in the sink. I won't be.
No, I'm not spitting it out. I don't want to do it.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
I like it.
Here's napkins if anybody needs a napkin.
My stomach's empty. so
Okay, well then don't do
I
it.
shouldn't
Yeah,
eat
mo-
this.
Too strong.
Delicious. Now that reminds me of kimchi.
Yeah, well, it's the same idea. Kimchi probably doesn't have vinegar in it.
Mm,
I like that.
So
Are they different?
That
my
was
nephew-
delicious.
Yeah, I love pickles and some.
Yeah, me too.
I've never
It's
made a
delicious.
pickle. I've never made a pickle I didn't like, so.
I actually don't like pickles.
Oh, then
Oh, then you won't
Ixnay.
like it. You won't
Ixnay,
like- you won't
Sandra.
like fermented
Oh,
food.
really?
that you won't like that.
Oh, well, I like kimchi. I like that. I just don't like
So-
the salt and the
Japan,
garlic
they
and
do
pickles.
everything, mainly daikon. But with every Japanese meal, you get something
Right.
like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's usually not with vinegar. So anyway, getting back
Wouldn't have
to
thought that.
Jonathan and
Yeah.
thyroid, he had to go on a total non-iodine diet,
mm.
which means you can't use anything from a can or a jar. Everything has to be fresh and no bread. Because
No
most,
bread.
all breads, bakeries, commercial breads, everything is use this product called carrageenan, which is made from seaweed.
Which is soft.
See,
from
yeah,
sea
see,
salt.
yeah,
yeah.
So
They put that, don't they, in the gluten-free stuff?
They might. But you can, he could have salt, but he couldn't have iodine. So we had to know what was going in it. So this was before I knew what the
So
hell I
no
was
bread and
doing.
no iodine.
And I made for him bread that I called weapons grade. If you dropped it on your foot, it would break. And that's.
The bread or the foot?
Whoa, yeah, right.
And that was because I couldn't deal with throwing out the discard. So right now I have all of this discard from the preparing for this class.
Yes.
And I couldn't bear to throw this out. So what I was doing is I was just feeding it, but not nearly enough. And so there was almost no activity for the bread to rise. So it tasted good, but it was really dense and heavy and not great. So I learned.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he's fine. He just had to, well, he had the radioactive iodine drink, and but his body had to have no other iodine in it. So yeah, he's fine. All right, so now it's time to shape the dough.
Pretty good shape.
So I know it. So what shape am I think I'll use this, because this is the one that I have.
Oh, yeah, I don't have a shape.
Can we get them cooked?
I'm just saying, I have all these jars that I use for gazpacho this summer.
You need one
I
of
can
those.
use the winter to make ferment some vegetables. Yeah, and ferment vegetables. Well, they're
Oh,
really big. They're too big for starters. But ferment some vegetables
Did
just
you
to
wanna
give it a
try
try. I did.
You want more? I'll have another piece, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, so the way they tell you to shape it.
Yeah, I'm gonna raise these books. You know,
Yes.
Use the,
Okay,
it'll be easier to.
sorry. So they have you pull it out. And what you're trying to do now is make a little package out of it, a tight package. You want it tight, but you don't want to press all the air out. So you pull it from one side. And I just learned this. Initially, I wasn't doing any of this. And then you pull it from this side. And then you pull it from this side. And it's not allowing me to pull it anymore, which means that I've got a nice, good, tight loaf. And then from here. So this hydration content is perfect for the tightness that I want to get this. So this now is supposedly here in a little package. And well, you flip it over. Yes, thank you, because I keep forgetting to do that. And then I want it elongated since I'm going to have it in that banneton. So again, I'm trying to tighten it some. And if you look at people online doing this with commercial bakeries, I mean, they're just doing, it takes them 2 seconds to do one.
Yeah, but it's fun to.
I know. So here I am getting a nice tight skin. Isn't that lovely? And then because the seams are on the other side,
You drop it in with the seams up.
yeah, because then when I go to bake it, it
Because
goes
it's
over,
seamed
yeah.
down.
And then I put it in a bag with,
Here, this one?
no,
No,
one of the laundry, yeah, that one, supermarket bag. And this goes into the refrigerator for its cold retard.
Oh, because you're not baking it right away.
Right. So I'll bake that tomorrow. And then I take this dough that I would not bake with and I put it back in the bag.
Oh, because you're just using it for.
Yeah, I just use it for dusting. All right. So, the two things that you really need to get a good loaf is you need active starter and good bread, good dough. All right. So it has to be bread flour. And if you want it to be easy to work with, you don't want whole wheat. If you want more nutrition in it, you put some whole wheat in it. In the tartine bread book, I'm sorry, Abraham, I keep disturbing this. The recipe that I use most of the time now is their country loaf. Their pictures are great. The basic country bread is what I make, and I would have given you the recipe, but they don't have a simple page with the recipe in it. This is 2 loaves worth, and for white flour, for 1 loaf, it's 450 grams, and whole wheat flour is 50 grams.
Just a
Oh,
very
so it's
little
very
bit.
small amount.
Yeah. There's a recipe in the handout that I'm going to email to you that has half from Teresa Greener that has half whole wheat, half bread flour. What I have been using lately, because I kind of went nuts when I got on the website for Castle Valley, and they're like a mile here or 2 miles. Yeah, I use that for bolted. So you can use this as bread flour. What is it? Because hang on, I'll get up to that. So I bought these, the einkorn flour and the emmer farro flour. I haven't tried the emmer farro flour, this one.
Yeah.
The einkorn flour is incredibly good. I used this for 1 loaf and it was so good that I doubled the amount that I put in. And there's a lot of gluten in here, but it is a whole grain. So it changes the hydration. So the dough is stickier. So I just needed more stuff on my hands.
Now, what's the guide online, or do you go into
I
the?
ordered it from from their website, from Castle Valley website. They don't, I go past their mill,
don't
but they
have
don't
an
have an
outlet.
outlet. I don't think they have an
We
outlet.
sell some of their stuff at like McCaffrey's.
Oh, they do?
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
at,
I know.
in Yardley, near Yardley at that big, was
There's
it
one by
Shady Brook
Big.
Farm?
Yeah.
But they don't sell that.
but right, so I buy it online and they deliver it. I just, have to pay for delivery. So, and then,
Just one question, you keep going over the gluten. I guess I'm a little confused about how much, why you need certain amounts of gluten. Like, what is the difference between heavy gluten and the not so gluten? I guess that's
Well-
the same as the hydration or no?
no,
totally
can you just put that in the refrigerator? Do we want to eat some bread, by the
Yeah,
way?
sure.
Okay,
Sure.
So, or a cookie? This is cool enough.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the
Beautiful.
sound that is just,
that's a nice knife. too.
See that? That's what you and I like that kind of stuff. Since you showed me yours, I'll show you mine. You sure? I should. Wow, that's
Huh?
beautiful.
Beautiful. Oh, my,
So what is it about, like, I'm
what's it about?
lactose intolerant, but I can handle eating
lactose or gluten?
Well, I didn't beat
lactose.
Okay, well, there's no
There's
milk
no
product
milk
in
in
any
it.
of
Now
this.
I know that she.
Oh, right, I'm thinking it had
Yeah.
buttermilk in it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, it doesn't have.
So,
any-
So this has, I'm happy with this crumb. I think this
Beautiful.
is,
I
mean,
had
it
more
looks
holes
like
in
bread.
mine.
Yep, so that's all I care about. is It looks like bread. So what is it about the
It's so
gluten?
high.
If
Mine
you
never get
bake
that
something
high.
without gluten, if you use a whole all rye, try it sometime and see what you get.
Probably had.
It's heavy and dense and it's not chewy. It doesn't have that springiness to it.
You know
Um,
how like German rye bread, it's like,
Mhm.
it's that thick,
Yeah.
dark thing?
Yeah.
That's
Has
more
more
bottom, less gluten.
Oh,
Less gluten, it's really dense.
The
and
rye
heavy,
breaker,
so
the,
less
the
gluten.
rye baker book has some
Gotcha.
pictures of that in there.
That's what confuses me. Oh, this is
So the bottom is
It's
pretty
the crust.
heavy, yeah. I've been trying to make my bottom crust less thick. Do you have any
No,
pointers
I
on that?
haven't, no. I like
How do you
it.
do that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like it.
I don't know.
I like
I know it's fine.
Wait a
Mine's
minute,
been
Tammy, I thought you
darker
had something
than that.
magic.
I can
Well,
share because
darker,
I like
yes,
the
I
middle.
do.
I just like the
I
middle.
No, I like
put a
the
baking
crust.
No, I like the
sheet
crust.
under
Me
it.
too.
I like
I
the
like
crust.
I like the heel of the bread.
Yeah,
Eat it
With
with
the
a
bread.
bread.
Yeah, I like that too. And even in
Touch
a
of it,
bake,
yeah.
in a pie, I like the crust.
Me too.
I moved my rat cup, so it was more toward the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like the
Isn't that
heel.
funny? I only like the middle. Most
Oh, no.
people don't like the middle. of
No,
it.
I
Me
like the
too.
crust.
You take the
I
middle.
always take
You
the
don't
middle.
Don't cut the crust off my
I
sandwich.
know,
thank you.
me too, I know.
I don't like the hard.
I
Eat it
feel
with
like
My
soup.
sister.
She eats that part. I love. That's what I
When my
love about it.
grandkids, when they were little, they'd.
So I didn't say anything about water.
Yeah, it's on my granddaughter's
Oh,
every
The other
lunch
thing
bus
about
stop.
flour that's really
Some of my
important,
grandkids.
on bleach, the flour must be
Yeah.
on bleach.
Unbleached. Okay.
Bleach will kill bacteria.
Oh, right, of
and
course,
yeast.
yeah.
All right, so
I- when
it
I-
has to be on bleach.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and I also have used Bob's red mill. I've also had that. The water, if you have really bad problems with getting your starter to go, try different water. I'm using Doylestown water, which I do have a water softening system in the house. And I take the water from the refrigerator and then I let it. I hope you don't mind my hands, but as you saw, that goes into making them.
Watch your fingers.
Yeah.
I use like distilled water or I think for the starter, but I just use regular water for the bread.
Well, they say that the distilled water is lacking in some of the nutrients that the starter might want. So distilled is not necessary. Yeah.
For spring water or just?
I don't know whether
Yes,
anybody,
So I have on the side of the counter, you'll see, well, those bottles that I always have a couple of bottles there with the lids off. So I let them outgas in case there's some, I'm gonna.
So that's just water from your dispenser on your fridge?
Yeah, and I always have some of that sitting there.
I ran how it came
Oh,
out.
they messed up this
Yeah,
year.
didn't I
Tasted
send
like
that?
a cake. It was not really-
My round.
It's your exercise for the day.
I
Mary.
know. Let me start this one over here. So this is a different feel from the sourdough, from the rye. This is easier to cut through. It's
I don't
got
know what
different
happened, but
crust.
they were so dense, they were like a cake.
And larger bubbles.
Yeah, it does.
I did the regular recipe from Sahara.
And that's the rye flour, I think, that does that.
The darker cast color.
Yeah.
That's what I did last year.
I mean, do you have any questions for me?
So when you make the rye dough bread, do you use the same recipe and just substitute the rye for the whole wheat
No,
flour?
I
You
use,
a different
I
recipe?
use her recipe. This, no, the tartine bread recipe. So the steps for me right now, it has, in the beginning, I was just reading the directions like crazy and just following every step and going back over it and timing everything. Now what I do is once the starter's ready, I mix the dough and then I go away. If I'm taking Sammy to the dog park, I could be gone for an hour and a half. Well, according to this book, I'm supposed to be doing stretch and folds every half hour, the first 2 hours. I come back an hour and a half later and I do some stretch and folds. And
That comes from experience, just knowing how
Yeah.
it feels. Yeah.
well, it works. I sometimes I get bigger holes. I don't care.
Yeah.
It still tastes good.
Right.
So basically what I do is I do stretch and folds for a period of 4 hours.
Mhm.
And then I do the bench rest and the shaping and put it in the refrigerator.
What's the bench rest again?
I just sit it
When
on
it
the
sits on
counter.
the
It's out there for half an hour.
So here's some bread and anybody's perfectly willing, happy
I have to eat some.
to cut that.
This is the rye.
Yeah.
There's some butter out. If somebody wants butter, I also have some goat cheese. from the farmer's
Sophia just
market.
wrote,
To the rye.
Sophia said they lost their name, but she played well.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. She's full of herself.
Did you get
Right,
it?
it's delicious. Really delicious.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if
I love the
anybody wants
cheese.
any butter or cheese on it. Well, the knives are in here.
You choose.
Delicious.
We both said we.
Right, because I like it, and then I put it in the
Oh,
crust.
okay. Good idea.
For those of us like the crust, and then I butter the crust.
I like the ends of
Here's
it
some-
too.
Isn't it incredible?
Oh, I want the corners. I want the corners.
Yeah.
I just
It has
hate
the most icing.
that it tastes so
Except
good.
I hate
And by the
icing.
way, there are.
And I don't
cookies
bake with
also.
icing at all.
Oh, yeah,
I don't eat ice
I
cream.
rarely, I
Thank you.
But even a nice cake, I don't.
Do you want some butter or goat cheese?
Yeah. possibly. I'll get mine there.
There you go. You should take that down to Abraham also.
Who was my grandmother's dairy flour?
Yeah, I know.
This is gold.
Community.
This is goat cheese, yeah.
Is that the one you have?
I used to.
Oh, so I didn't say anything about this bolted flour. So
I think Brian has it.
you were the one, you said you
I
used
bought the
it.
bolted because that was
Oh.
what they had when I was in the store.
I'm not buying it.
So online on their site, it says that, I mean, I thought bolted meant that the wheat had already,
It meant it was more hardy, but there was less stuff taken away, I thought.
well,
Is that wrong?
Robin's good.
I thought I think they said something online that it could be used instead of this, that it has less of the kernels in it.
Maybe. I used that half and half with Martha bread flour.
And again, the fact that it's bread flour is the important thing. I get confused sometimes when I see all-purpose, because all-purpose is not bread flour.
Right.
No. It's not all purpose.
Right.
Some
purpose.
Some purpose.
Most
In my
purpose.
mouth, I have clean- Are you taking up?
Videoing us eating.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you're standing in front.
Are we still videoing? I want any more of your red flour, but just because one recipe said it was.
Sammy,
Different cameras.
she knows that you like her.
She's more than me, I love
I
her.
know.
Do you give Sammy bread? She's a good girl.
No, I don't give her anything for my hands.
No, you put it in the bowl, right?
If I give her anything,
In the
yeah,
bowl.
but I'm trying not to give her much in the way of human food.
You
You know, I'm just gonna cut this way.
It's so good.
Miriam.
What?
Mine made it, mine didn't really come out tasting like salad.
Well,
Last
Yeah,
time we
there's
got
seeds in
sauce.
there.
that's your
Thought I had
starter.
to burn my
So
first
There's seeds in
one.
there too. It's
Oh,
excellent.
had to eat
Where,
it.
where did your starter come
Walked
from?
back in, had something to
Yeah.
eat.
My neck
All
was
they had
hurting.
was cookies.
Well,
Damn it,
and
you
you
ate a
fed
cookie.
it,
I ate a whole
bread's
bag of that for a long
expensive.
time.
It's
so
magnificent,
it
isn't
may
it?
be that it
I was
doesn't.
gonna say, I'd never do that
Doesn't
before, but
bubbly?
now maybe I will.
When
because
it
it's
gave
such good bread.
Yeah, when you were using it.
I don't have the
Not
pictures.
while I was using
No,
it,
I
it
think I
had
will during the
bubbles.
winter.
No, it needs to be bubbly when
Little tiny
you use
pieces.
it.
Oh, like at the top stage.
Yeah.
Taste it. Doesn't it get
Yeah.
like more sour the older it gets?
Yeah.
Older than
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
The starter.
Like if it was 16 years old or something.
Oh, like mine is
Yeah.
6 months, 8 months, almost a year.
All right, so here's something that I
A
forgot
year and
to
a half,
do.
probably, and it's
Yeah.
really starting to smell. I had a bread together.
I didn't taste the plain yet. You guys, I forgot a very important step when I put the bread in the banneton. You need to put some flour in it so that it will release. I use the banneton with the cloth, so it'll be a little bit easier, but rice flour is like little ball bearings. So I use rice flour for basically for lubrication. Yeah, Sammy doing bad things.
He's goosing me.
Just don't let her near Abraham. Sammy?
Are
where
you allergic?
girlfriend?
Are you allergic?
So,
Are you allergic to the
so
dog?
remember
No,
to
no.
use this
No,
if
just-
you need
Crush
something,
my-
get it to release.
Right through my.
Your hands are-
Yeah.
So I'll try it again with my old stuff. That's been sitting there for a while.
I'm really sorry about that, Abraham. Did she get you good?
No.
I guess maybe time to close down the.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, no, that's not nice. No.
Okay.
Use your nose. Good nose. Use your nose.
good.
It's wonderful.
Wow, look at that.